March was the third month in a row of lockdown for England. It has been highly effective in reducing case and death numbers, and the vaccination project is coming on in leaps and bounds. Over half the adult population has now been vaccinated, and it's reaching the point where it isn't even that uncommon to hear of young people with no major ailments getting the jab. When I hear things about Paris entering an emergency lockdown or Europe struggling with vaccine supplies, I look at England and think, yeah, we've done a good job. But that being said, it hasn't been easy to live through it. Before this whole thing, I expected lockdown to involve real physical hardships like huddling around a fire, handing a half-eaten baked bean can around the circle. But obviously it hasn't been like that. There aren't any shortages of essential supplies. All the food tastes the same as it did before. And we went on a shop where we picked up Easter eggs. We can go out of our house for walks. It's just, I want to walk somewhere that isn't within walking distance of my house. I've done every meaningful variation of those a dozen times. It isn't that it's hard to survive lockdown, it's just that you can't live it. The hard part, it seems, is the flat line, mentally. For me, I've worked from home for years, I'm used to this existence, but in a way that makes losing what little social life I used to have hurt me even more now that it's no longer here. But it's been worse to see other people who were previously social butterflies becoming something sad and depressing. These people welcomed lockdown and being able to work from home. They'd pick up new hobbies and would get around to things that they had been putting off. But once that novelty wore off and they realised they were left with a more limited existence than they were before, these people changed into something sadder and more depressing. Almost like they no longer have the energy for socialising. That even after all this is over and the lockdown is lifted, they'll still be sat on the sofa staring at the TV screen. That hurts me the most. To wonder if these people will ever return to how they were before, or if they've picked up bad habits and have lost the motivation to do stuff that they used to have before this all started. I know people who had never struggled with sleep before, who are now lying awake at night and are tired in the day. It goes to show how unhealthy my routine light lifestyle is when I see people who are used to routine getting wrecked by it. Although it doesn't seem like this pandemic has been a problem for everybody. Being at home, I don't see people out and about, but I hear things from others about how the beaches are busy, how the roads are crowded, and how a very large proportion of the population is acting as though we're not in lockdown at all. And it sucks even more when this happens and when the resulting case increases are used as proof that vaccinations don't work. It frustrates me. I feel like I'm a sucker for sacrificing my days in order to keep the cases down enough for everybody else to be able to do whatever the hell they want. It's like, what else can I do? I'm not benefiting from their actions, but I can guarantee you I'll be punished for the consequences of their actions in the form of extended or harsher lockdowns. I also get fed up with the phone services. When typing this script, I was in a 40-minute phone queue for my bank. They say that during these hard times they're exceptionally busy and that waiting times are longer than normal, but you'd think that a call centre would be one of the perfect things to be done from home. And I know phone calls can be done from home because that's literally what my girlfriend is doing right now. And she has been on the front line of receiving the anger and frustration that the general population feels. I think it's been good for her. She used to bend over backwards to help everybody, but now she stands her ground and refuses to be bullied by unreasonable people. But it's come at a downside. It's given her so much resentment towards humanity, and I don't know if such a thing is fully reversible. At least the anti-vax movement has quietened down a bit. It could be just because I've been producing lots of other content on this channel lately, so I don't see quite so many of the comments. The Daily Mail continues to churn out shock piece after shock piece, no surprise there, and some other countries are still investigating whether certain vaccines are safe, which is always brought up whenever somebody argues against taking the vaccines. Slowly but surely, however, uptake is increasing, the cases are dropping, and the rollout is reaching the stage where the craziest of conspiracies have been all but dispelled. I doubt you'll ever convince the die-hard anti-vaxxers of their merit, but those less brainwashed may begin to quieten down and to pretend they never sided with the anti-vaxxers in the first place. America and England are both progressing quickly with their vaccination program, but it's Israel that's leading the charge, and because of this, it's the place I look to whenever I want to know where we'll be in a few months' time. Since you're watching this from the future, you no doubt have a better idea of what happens than I do, but it looks like Israel's cases are super low and that most things are open. It's back to how things were before the pandemic, but with added masks. It's hard to tell how much of their success is thanks to lockdowns and how much of it is thanks to their vaccines. But since we're doing something similar, I like to imagine that this is where we will be in a few months' time. Israel is openly offering the vaccine to anybody over 16, and starting in May, that will be extended to under 16s. The cases aren't at zero. There are still new cases, there are still new deaths, and there are still people on ventilators. But things are trending downwards, and I'm excited to see if they continue on that trajectory now that life is pretty much back to normal there. Now, I've been a bit short-sighted with this pandemic. I imagined that once we got it under control in this country that my life would be back to normal, but it won't work like that, will it? Other countries must also get things contained before things can really return to normal. Take holidays for instance. The idea of being able to get away from home must be so appealing to most people right now, but we won't be able to get on a plane to somewhere unless our destination also has things under control. There's talk of a vaccine passport in this country to only permit vaccinated people into venues and stuff. It hasn't been a popular idea. But without something like this, I'm not sure how we're going to handle global travel again. Will we open it up on a per country basis? Or will it be dependent on whether the individuals travelling have been vaccinated or not? I forgot to mention it last month, but the Queen spoke about the pandemic and I found it all to be incredibly dank. When I think of nobility, I imagine large halls, fireplaces and traditions that stretch back centuries.
It's a bit like a plague, isn't it?
So to see Her Majesty sat in front of her webcam having an unscripted conversation in a Zoom meeting was super entertaining. I'll link to it in the description. These coronavirus videos of mine aren't intended to be watched when they're released. They're meant for people in the future to be reminded of how things were at this point in time. So I should really be talking more about how things were before this pandemic. Things that may have changed forever because of it. McDonald's used to have the occasional delivery person waiting around for an order to be ready, but right now, 2/3 of the restaurant is allocated for delivery people. That's a huge change. I don't expect it to remain quite like that once things open up again, but I do expect for more of them to remain around after all this is over, now that people have had a taste of what it's like to click and collect meals in this fashion. And if you're watching this from the future, here's some advice. Profit from the pandemic. You can't spend money on holidays or activities, so why not invest it in companies that benefit from a pandemic, or which will benefit from the end of a pandemic? Pubs, hotel chains, that lot. It's obviously easier said than done. It's gambling softened by speculation, after all. Who's to say how long a pandemic will last when it first starts? What if a company goes bankrupt before it reopens? What if the pandemic changes the world in such a way that the company is irrelevant by the time it's over? But I guess all that risk is why, with hindsight, there is so much money to be made from a disaster like this. This episode marks the 1-year anniversary of this series. The early bits were scary, but interesting. Recently it's been unbelievably dull and I worry that my life is being wasted away one day at a time. I think something like this does change you, and the world. It'll divide your life up as being before the pandemic and after the pandemic. And if I had to give you just one bit of advice, it would be to keep in touch with people. Make that effort to phone your parents from time to time, or to host Zoom meetings. When it all starts, you think you'll do this, but it's scary how soon that passes. Make an effort, and get fit while you're at it.
Red Room Town, where every other shop seems to close.